We're ready. Welcome, everyone. I am Hannah Nickel,
And I'm Shannon Vassell.
and today's session, Leading Through Uncertainty, is about how we lead when uncertainty is high and complexity is unavoidable. This session introduces the Connect model, a human centered framework designed to help leaders navigate complexity without defaulting to oversimplification, avoidance, or control. To start, let's look at why this conversation matters right now.
Thanks so much, Hannah. So, in our rapidly evolving world, we are all facing an increasing pace of global change. Many leaders, you and I, have expectations pulling us in different directions between work, family, school, and community responsibilities. And so sometimes those expectations even conflict. We may be overwhelmed by constant access to media, and our deepening global interconnectedness means that disruptions in economics, politics, and environmental systems affect all of us. The rise of artificial intelligence and other technologies is reshaping the ways that we work and the ways that we lead. So, why this conversation now? Because the challenges and opportunities that we are all facing require us to reframe how we lead amidst such change and uncertainty. In today's world, we find ourselves leading in environments that are not just complex, but persistently so. This complexity and uncertainty can feel overwhelming at times. Our challenge, and again, our opportunity is to navigate leadership with resilience and adaptability. Today's agenda is designed to guide us through a journey of understanding and navigating complexity in leadership. First, we'll explore what brought Hannah and me together. Then we dive into what it means to lead amidst complexity and uncertainty. Next, we'll examine AI as an example of complexity in action. Following that, Hannah will introduce the Connect model, which offers a human-centered framework for leadership. Finally, we'll close with Q&A to respond to some of your thoughts and questions. Feel free to use Zoom's Q&A feature to share your questions or thoughts as we go along. We curated this session to be especially engaging, informative, and generative. So throughout our time together, we'll share opportunities for reflections via polls. So we look forward to your participation.
Thanks, Shannon, for that agenda. So on your screen, you will see our learning objectives for this webinar. Today's conversation is designed to be reflective, practical, and grounded in complexity leadership theory and research. We will explore what complexity actually is, how humans experience uncertainty, and how leaders can create conditions for resilience, adaptability, and trust. So, a little bit about our story, what inspired us to put this content out into the world. Well, Shannon and I met about 10 years ago when we had both just returned to the US to work with international programs at Emory University in Atlanta. I had just moved to the US from teaching in Hong Kong, and Shannon had come from teaching in the United Arab Emirates. And so, as you can imagine, we were natural friends. At that time, we were both navigating reverse culture shock, new careers, new institutions, new seasons of life, and we were both supporting global leaders and learners through our work. And so we started taking regular walks and talks across Emory's campus, and our connection helped us both adapt to the changes in our lives at that time. And so we've remained friends and colleagues over the past decade. And this webinar idea arose from a conversation at my birthday dinner a few months ago when we were chatting about our shared interests in leadership development and thinking about what might be supportive to our communities as we all seem to be navigating uncertainty. So we hope that you find what we've created useful as you navigate the complexities of leadership in your rapidly changing workplaces.
Thanks, Hannah. And I just have to say, I have so enjoyed and just been honored to be working with you and been friends, like you said, colleagues for a decade now. Time really has flown by. So let's dive into the concept of complexity. Complexity is about interconnectedness, both within systems and between them. Because our systems and the parts of our systems are so connected, when one change occurs, it sparks a ripple effect leading to other changes. Now consider these various aspects of complexity. There are many variables interacting continuously. There's ongoing change, and there's a constant flow of feedback. New patterns and possibilities emerge from the parts. In other words, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. You can't fully know a complex system because of this continuous interaction and evolution. In complex systems, solutions don't end problems. Every time we take an action, it reshapes the entire system. In complex systems, we encounter what are called wicked problems. These are problems that instead of simply being solved, they often lead to more questions and sometimes even more intricate problems. To navigate these challenges, it's important to embrace the notion that complex problems are not problems to be solved once and for all. Instead, leaders continuously engage with and learn from complex problems. One active strategy that you can use in times of complexity is to have everyone on your team describe the complex challenge in a word or phrase. This strategy helps develop shared sense-making. So let's try it now. Take a moment to reflect. Hopefully you have a writing utensil, paper, or even a digital or a device nearby. And think of a word or phrase that captures your experience with complexity right now. Consider writing this word or phrase down, or you can share it in the Q&A. As we move forward, keep this personal insight in mind. Now let's delve into the relationship between complexity and uncertainty. Certainty is clear knowing. It's the brain expecting specific outcomes from predetermined inputs. Alternatively, uncertainty is when the input and or the outcomes are unknown. So we have unknown inputs and unknown outcomes. As complexity increases, certainty decreases. This is because complexity introduces more unknown inputs and outcomes. Think about it like putting together a puzzle when the puzzle pieces are constantly changing, as well as the image that you're trying to put together also changes. In complexity, prediction is not possible. Therefore, uncertainty is inevitable. Our brains naturally crave certainty, predictability, and clear cause and effect relationships. However, our modern world, full of complex and adaptive systems, rarely provide this straightforwardness. Instead, They challenge us with unpredictability and intertwined variables. Our response to complexity and uncertainty is fundamentally human. When faced with stress, we often have instinctive reactions of fight, flight, or freeze. These are hardwired into us. So in times of uncertainty, it's natural to feel a mix of emotions. We can be confident, yet anxious, motivated, and overwhelmed. Here is another practical strategy that I want to share with you. In moments when emotional complexity is high, maybe during times of excitement, anxiety, or even crisis, we may be tempted to act quickly, maybe to bring certainty back or to have control of the situation. But instead, I encourage you to slow down. Ask yourself, is this decision, is this action, is this reaction reversible? And if not, before making that decision or taking that action, check in with a mentor or a trusted colleague for processing and accountability. It's important to recognize our mixed emotions, not as dysfunction, but as valuable data. By embracing these mixed emotions, we can transform our emotional complexity into a powerful leadership skill. And although we naturally crave certainty, let's also acknowledge that we are indeed complex beings, and our growth relies on complexity. Healthy systems thrive on variability. It's this very complexity that enables us to adapt and grow. Therefore, complexity and uncertainty is not the enemy. Take a moment and ask yourself, maybe even repeat after me. Can I let go of the illusion of control and embrace disruption as a catalyst for adaptation and growth? And the answer to this question, can I embrace uncertainty as an opportunity for growth, is yes, we can. We must, we will. And really, you are. Leaders are experiencing disruption and change, especially in this modern world, constantly. From geopolitical conflict, perhaps changes in our health and well-being, economic fluctuations, even changes in the seasons. The reality is we are navigating uncertainty all the time. So let's have our first poll. Take a moment to reflect on your resilience and adaptability. Think about how you personally navigate uncertainty. For example, integrating AI into your work. How would you rate your resilience and adaptability in these uncertain situations? We'll give everyone an opportunity to share their responses to the poll.
So you should see a poll popping up on your Zoom screen. If you could select one of the 5 options.
I want to encourage, let's have 2 more people respond to the poll. All right, and then we can have a chance to see our results. Are we able to display the results? Let's see. There we
All
are.
right. So it looks like about half of us felt moderate in our resilience and adaptability and navigating uncertainty. Maybe we were thinking about how we are integrating AI into our work and adapting to those changes. It sounds like about 26% of us had a high level of resilience and adaptability, 11% very high, 11% felt low. Thank you so much for participating in that poll.
And I will say that the range of, if you can go back one slide, Hannah,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say that the range of experiences with uncertainty and complexity is very normal. Like we talked about those mixed emotions. And maybe in some situations, your resilience or adaptability is higher than others. And so I hope as
Mm-hmm.
we go on with the webinar, you'll receive some additional strategies to increase your resilience and adaptability. And those who set high or very high, think about how you can share some of your strategies with others.
Absolutely, Shannon. I agree. I think that I was a quick adopter of AI. And so for me, thinking about AI, I might rate my adaptability as high, but thinking about navigating winter and cold, my adaptability can be on the very low side. It really impacts me. So
Thanks, Hannah.
back to you, Shannon.
Thanks. So, in our complex, uncertain modern work, leadership is no longer about control, specific character traits, or even removing uncertainty. The myth of the hero leader is no longer. In today's world, leaders are called to help teams, organizations, and communities navigate uncertainty. Leadership is about building adaptive capacity, enabling ourselves and others to thrive in unpredictable. Leaders must work to create conditions for innovation. Think about complexity leadership in terms of maybe a gardener. A gardener cannot guarantee harvest. They can tend to the soil, adjust exposure to light and sun, ensure access to water and nutrients. They protect from harsh conditions and remove barriers. They observe closely and make necessary adjustments. Growth may happen not because the gardener controls the plant, but because the conditions allow for development. And in a well-cultivated environment, growth and harvest increase. The potential for growth and harvest increase. Impact, innovation, and success emerges. As you consider reframing your view of leadership, I invite you to release the illusion of control and remove expectation. In place, I encourage you to embrace the power of potential and emergence to enable growth, impact, and success for your team and organization. So how do we create environments in which uncertainty is an opportunity, not a liability? And where does AI fit into this picture? How do we ensure that human connection remains central in this evolving landscape? These are some of the questions we'll explore in our next section.
All right. Thank you, Shannon, for that amazing overview of complexity leadership theory. Let's dive in next to our case study on artificial intelligence and the future of work. So, in today's socio-technical climate, there is a deep interdependent relationship between society, that is people, culture, norms, and technology, that is tools, systems, and processes. And AI is quickly escalating that interdependence. So, we've all heard about the impacts of AI and its unprecedented growth. I don't have to say too much. Reviewing the history, in November 2022, ChatGPT was launched, you might remember. making it a significant milestone as it was the first time advanced AI became widely available to the public through natural language. So within 2 months, it was already the fastest growing consumer application in history. Today, about 1 billion people are using AI weekly worldwide, and about 75% of workers are now integrating generative AI tools into their daily jobs. So that's some rapid change. And in today's conversation, we will reflect on how this rapid adoption of AI has influenced our work environments and sort of the uncertainty around how it might continue to impact our work in the future. So, a moment of reflection. Let's take a moment to reflect together on the impact that AI has had on our work and may continue to have in our work, but acknowledging that some of these questions we might not be able to fully answer. For example, we can all reflect on what changes we've experienced in recent years since 2022 when ChatGPT hit the scene. But in reflecting on what changes we anticipate as AI becomes increasingly embedded, we might not really know what that looks like. And that can create some uncertainty, especially because AI as a tool, it's designed to evolve. It's actively evolving, but we don't know to what extent it will evolve. And so it's natural to feel a little bit nervous with that uncertainty. And our relationship with AI can often look dualistic in nature, right? AI looks smart on one hand, acts smart, but doesn't really know anything the way that a human would, right? It's not conscious, it's not sentient. And, on the other hand, with access to more training data than any human could possibly process, AI can act as a subject matter in virtually any topic, right? So that sort of threatens our sense of subject matter expertise sometimes, because how do you define subject matter expertise when you've got these machines that know everything, right? But at the same time, on the other hand, AI doesn't understand context. It doesn't understand nuance. It doesn't understand the experience of being human. So it's both highly efficient and highly unreliable, right? So we're all familiar with the many benefits of using AI to augment our work processes, including accelerating idea generation, increasing our writing confidence sometimes, helps us draft a quick email, can help us to surface relevant literature sources very quickly, help us synthesize large volumes of information, explore multiple response pathways, and enable rapid iteration. On the other hand, there are negatives to all of those benefits, right? On the other side of digging up data and sources, there are AI hallucinations. What does this mean? That, it's referencing sources that do not exist. That's really scary for those of us who are using AI for research or really, really anything, right? Hallucinated information and data. There are privacy and ownership issues. The AI model owners have ownership of whatever data or information you input. So, we want to be careful what we're feeding into these models. And then these overconfident responses, AI, I think of as kind of an overconfident, very smart teenager. I can't really trust it. It's trained to be people pleasing. And its verbosity, its wordiness often makes us feel like we got the right answer when perhaps we didn't. It's also trained on human biases. An AI model trained by human curation can be biased, and the information generated can be based on the dominant ideologies of the humans curating it. So AI is only as good as its training data. There's that confirmation bias piece as well. So we've talked a little bit about the complexities of AI, and I'll invite Shannon to contribute further here.
Yeah, definitely. So this is, Hannah, you shared several risks as well as several benefits of AI, and it can be tempting for us as we're navigating this uncertainty of AI to think about only the risk or only the benefits or think about them as a complete opposite. But I would invite us to take a complexity perspective and think about how do we balance or hold both the risk and the benefits. And that process is in of itself complex. So, for example, we might think about the environmental impact of AI. The energy consumption required for training and maintaining AI systems is substantial and often harmful to indigenous nations and their lands and to widening socioeconomic disparities and inequities. So, a question may be, how do we ensure the benefits of AI are equitably distributed and the risks are mitigated, not just now, but over time, in order to have a future where AI is both inclusive and sustainable?
Great. So we invite you to share your thoughts in another poll that you should see on your screen now. So as you think about navigating AI's complexities, what feels most urgent for you right now? Your first option is using AI responsibly without over reliance, kind of finding that balance, maintaining human judgment and decision making, understanding ethical, privacy, or bias concerns, keeping up with rapid changes, expectations, learning how AI fits strategically into my role, and finally, still figuring out where to start. So please take a vote if you have not already. And there's no right or wrong. Go with your gut.
Right. I hope we have several responses, and let's go ahead and see those responses.
All right, so it sounds like most of us, 24%, um, are thinking about maintaining human judgment and decision making. Yes, very real concerns. 19% split using AI responsibly without over reliance. Another 19% ethical, privacy, or bias concerns. Another 19% keeping up with rapid change. So it sounds like, many of these elements are relevant. Thank you so much for letting us know where you are. That helps us in our conversation today. So I'd like to invite you to another poll. What changes do you anticipate as AI becomes more embedded in your leadership? So, greater reliance on AI for decision support, increased pressure to upskill or reskill, redefined roles and job expectations, more focus on human skills, or increased productivity with fewer resources, and finally, unsure or hard to predict. Again, no right or wrong.
All right, and let's see those responses.
All right, this is interesting. So it looks like 24%, 8 of you, feel an increased pressure to upskill or reskill. Yeah, very real concerns for many of us.
And that highest response, the increased pressure, thinking about oftentimes when pressure increases, we can have kind of a sense of urgency and even increased productivity with fewer resources. We might feel a pressure to increase our own productivity or outputs. And so, again, that encouragement that we shared with you earlier to not respond from that emotional complexity, but using that feeling of pressure or uncertainty as data.
I love that. Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Oops. Did we have one more poll?
Yep.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So, what feels most uncertain about AI and the future of your work? Job security or role stability, how decisions will be made with AI involved, ethical use, bias or transparency, how much to trust AI generated outputs, keeping up with the pace of change, or nothing feels particularly uncertain right now.
Let's see if we can have a few more people, maybe 2 or 3 respond, and then we'll see your responses. All right, let's see what everyone is feeling most uncertain about.
It looks like 27% are thinking about ethical use, bias, and transparency. 24% job security or role stability. And another 24% how much to trust AI generated outputs, understandably.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, again, this piece around bias, transparency is also connected to trust. And we'll be talking about that more later in our webinar about the importance of trust and how we can maintain that through connection. Thank you.
Yes. Great. Thank you for participating in those polls. Now let's reflect a bit more on how AI is reshaping our professional world. So, AI is augmenting our labor efforts, often causing our professional identities to shift. Again, what does it really mean to be a subject matter expert today? When AI can do it too. Our workflows as well are changing rapidly with each new advancement. The way that we approach our tasks is evolving, often pushing us into this unfamiliar territory. And this naturally does lead to a bit of uncertainty as we think about the future of work. So, it's a bit analogous to the Industrial Revolution when the farmer was disconnected from their labor. And in today's, the service and knowledge economy workers are having to also reshape our professional identities in the AI era. As an identity construct, AI is breaking our notion of specialization. Are we still differentiated by the time that we've put into subject matter expertise, for example? So, Shannon, I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts? How do we navigate a world in which AI is increasingly woven into the fabric of our work and our lives?
Yeah, yeah. As we review what we've talked about so far, I think that sets us up to think about, again, the importance of human connection. So remember that we naturally desire certainty and control. As our leadership roles, and like you said, Hannah, our professional identities, as well as our workflows continue shifting, we are also at the same time increasingly interconnected across systems, across cultures. And so in today's uncertain and complex challenges, as they present opportunities for growth and innovation, we, again, like you said, Hannah, are asking ourselves, how do we navigate our uncertainty and complex world? And I would say, and I think this is what we both, are offering to everyone, is that connection is more important today than ever. In today's globally linked AI-enabled workplaces, our shared humanity, our ability to connect becomes increasingly valuable.
Absolutely, Shannon. Just like you and me connecting over our walks as we were going through our transition. So I love this African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. AI does seem to be accelerating everything, right? Except human connection, authenticity, and trust. And you know, this causes some uncertainty because we are globally interdependent. We rely on each other. And while a focus on speed can be tempting in this AI era, sustainable progress comes from moving together in collaborative, supportive groups. So this is where we're introducing the Connect model, a human-centered framework for leadership in today's AI-enabled, globally interconnected workplaces. And as Shannon mentioned, authenticity and human connection are increasingly valuable in our fast-paced, technology-mediated world, and effective leadership hinges, therefore, on our capacity for connection. So, this model that we're introducing is designed to help us cultivate cultures of adaptability, inclusion, and shared sense making, especially in moments of change, transition, and uncertainty. So, let's use the acronym CONNECT. These are qualities that we can cultivate to improve our capacity for connection and also hopefully help you remember through the acronym. So let's begin with the first two elements of the CONNECT model. C and O stand for curiosity and openness. So we can be curious without being open, right? Openness is a willing to accept what you've learned, even when it may be challenging. We are, as Shannon mentioned, in a globally interconnected community, and that can present many opportunities and challenges, right? There can be miscommunications, misunderstandings, and misaligned expectations. So, can we approach these differences, these different approaches with curiosity? So instead of asking ourselves, what box is this person in? Which is a common human tendency, right? Our brains like to categorize. We like to have things in black and white and structured boxes. But this change in perspective encourages us to see beyond stereotypes, labels, and to really foster a deeper, real understanding of those around us. It's about moving away from assumptions and truly engaging with the uniqueness of each person. Because the fewer assumptions that we make based on superficial layers of identity, the stronger our capacity to connect and to collaborate. So let's dive into the ends in the Connect model. Noticing nuance. Specifically, I want to talk here about global contexts, or think about this in global context. First, noticing. Webster's defines it as paying attention. We can notice nuances without making a quick judgment. When we notice things about an individual, we notice, rather than putting them in a box, we notice nuance. We might have an impulse to make quick judgments based on appearance, but noticing individual nuance gives us time to be thoughtful about those observations or to notice our own biases when they do arise. So many culture experts will give you tips like, when you go to do business in China and you get a business card, make sure to receive it with two hands, study it carefully to show respect. And these are sort of superficial behaviors that we can learn and notice through observation. But having said that, we don't necessarily need to define or remember every rule or categorization in order to be successful doing business globally. Mostly, it's helpful to pay attention and be open to learning. Of course, it can be helpful to be aware of broader concepts such as collectivism and individualism, as illustrated on this slide, because yes, cultural expectations and individual perceptions can vary, and it's helpful for us to be aware of potential variations in working with people who have different lived experiences and therefore maybe different expectations than us. It's helpful for us to know that there might be cultural differences, for example, around hierarchy and leadership. Just how powerful is the boss? Well, it depends on the context. It can also be helpful for us to broaden our thinking around punctuality and notions of time in collaborating globally. What does it mean to be on time? Well, it depends on the context. Because not every element of culture can be defined, I think is the key point here, right? In fact, most elements of culture lie outside of our conscious awareness. And this figure that you see on your screen illustrates the iceberg concept of culture. So we've just discussed some elements of culture that might be in our awareness, but many cultural differences are primarily out of our awareness, such as notions about logic or validity or all of these other aspects that you're seeing that are underneath the water, hidden, the hidden part of the iceberg. And progress here is being okay with sometimes not knowing or understanding and open to connecting and learning in our not knowing. And cultural humility helps us do that. So Shannon, I'd love to invite you to share more about this.
Yeah, I would, want to share a practical strategy that leaders can use, and that's what I call 5 and 5. And so, when faced with a complex situation, I would invite us all to consider assembling an interdisciplinary team of 5 individuals. Each person in this situation has 1 minute to share their perspective of the problem. And like Hannah said, that perspective may be from their own cultural perspective or their own lived experience with their culture or identity. It may be from their disciplinary perspective or other lived experiences. But each person has 1 minute to share their perspective of the complex problem. And then the decision maker has 5 minutes to summarize and reflect on what was shared and insights gained. And if we can take 5 to 10 minutes in times of urgency, maybe even crisis, complexity, then that can help us have a more nuanced experience of the problem. And it allows the leader to display humility and curiosity in order to build trust and possibility.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. So moving forward to the E in connect, empathy. Empathy is the foundation of meaningful connection. It could be described as the ability to understand what another person might be feeling or experiencing. AI, for example, lacks empathy. In today's AI mediated workplaces, this very human quality of empathy can help us preempt and solve the types of problems that arise in uncertain environments. Because who we are at our core, our shared humanity, it transcends linguistic, cultural, technological, and many other barriers to connection, right? Just because I don't understand or share your lived experience doesn't mean I can't connect or empathize with you and your experience. So on to the final C, clarity. Clarity is another essential for effective connection via our communication, especially in complex and globally interconnected professional environments. Might I add, AI mediated professional environments. So when we communicate with clarity, we minimize misunderstandings and we improve collaboration. And even AI transcripts will benefit from clear communication, right? So clear, direct, simple communication that is sort of without too many contractions or idioms or slang means a more efficient AI transcribing process. So let's talk about this. What does clear communication look like? Well, I could talk about this for 5 hours, but in essence, it often helps to slow down and simplify. It also helps to avoid monocultural references, um, slang, idioms, colloquialisms. Why is this? Because context specific references, think pop culture references, sports analogies, often rely on cultural or linguistic or context specific knowledge that can exclude and confuse those unfamiliar with them or those outside this very narrow specific context. So using clear, direct language can help our message be more accessible, right? So, for example, instead of saying let's touch base tomorrow, which I think is a baseball analogy, we could just say let's meet tomorrow to discuss. See how that helps simplify language, not assuming that everyone understands these idioms that don't directly describe what it is that we're saying. Okay. And being mindful that there might be different interpretations of the same utterance.
You know, Hannah, I really appreciate the word that you used, minimizing misunderstandings, because we can't completely prevent misunderstandings. And
Yeah.
so I love that this point about effective communication, not depending on full understanding, but really also depending on how we resolve our misunderstandings. This means being open to dialogue and willing to clarify and even adjust our message as needed. I will share a practical strategy that I'm sure we're all familiar with, but if you're like me, you might often struggle with it. But a practical strategy to navigating a misunderstanding is simply 3 words: I am sorry, or I apologize. These words can transform misunderstandings from obstacles to opportunities that deepen our connections.
I love that, Shannon. And that's also a way to build trust, right? Mm-hmm. Apologizing and being quick to apologize. I think it's a beautiful quality, and I love that about you, Shannon. I like that about our interactions. Let's talk about trust. Trust is a fundamental element of authentic, sustainable connection and meaningful collaboration. Trust is often also linked to vulnerability, the ability to say, hey, I messed up, I'm sorry. And it's that vulnerability that builds true connection over time. So, how do we build trust? Aside from, being quick to apologize. Well, I love this quote. If you see yourself in everyone, then whom can you harm? Going back to empathy, remembering that who we are at our core, our shared humanity, really transcends any other superficial layer. It transcends culture, technology, other superficial layers of identity or medium that threaten to separate us. So trust isn't about having the same experiences. It's about being open to understanding and valuing each other's unique perspectives and building a relationship through that lens. So, to review, on your screen is the CONNECT acronym model that we just discussed. Connecting it back to our case study, let's think about how the CONNECT model might apply to navigating today's socio-technical climate. While AI can complete tasks and formulate ideas faster than any human could, it cannot build trust among stakeholders, cannot understand nuance or context, it cannot hold team members accountable. And AI can't lead a difficult conversation with both clarity and empathy the way that a human could, right? These abilities are unique to humans, and only human leaders can determine why we work, what we're trying to achieve, and how to communicate that in a way that fosters collaboration and trust.
So you may be wondering, well, what does progress look like as we navigate uncertainty? If everything's changing, everything's interconnected, everything's uncertain, what does progress look like? And I would offer that true progress comes when we let go of control and certainty. When we intentionally connect, we focus, as Hannah said earlier, we focus on our shared humanity, and we redefine leadership in a transformative way. This shift pushes us towards adaptability and innovation, where outcomes and impact matter more than rigid plans. It invites us to embrace new opportunities and even more questions. Progress likely will not look linear, but instead involve complex waves of change and even fallback. I invite us all to lead in ways that create environments that can hold our collective journeys. We want to begin wrapping up with this beautiful quote: individually, we are one drop. Together, we are an ocean. When we come together, when we connect, we harness our collective strengths to create meaningful impact and navigate complex challenges. With the few moments remaining, we are excited to share some of your questions. Any questions that you have will take a few minutes to answer, so I encourage you to share those in Zoom's Q&A feature. As you all are sharing your questions, I'll recap some of what was shared earlier, words that describe kind of our experience in our current complex world. Lakeisha shared confusing, Caitlin shared overwhelming, Ethel shared agility. And so again, if we think about even just those three experiences, imagine if you were on a team and you're trying to lead that team to adopt more AI-enabled work. Thinking about the complexity of the team experiencing confusion, a sense of overwhelm, as well as agility. Think about how you can navigate that amongst a team or even within an organization. I see another question here from Catherine. Can you share resources on learning more about leading in complexity? I'd like to learn more about this. Interestingly enough, Catherine, I have a stack of books right beside me that I can share with you. One is entitled Unlocking Leadership Mind Traps from Jennifer Garvey Berger. So a lot of how we approach complex challenges, wicked problems, and certain environments is really about adopting different mindsets. And so that text, Unlocking Leadership Mind Traps, I have found very helpful. Another text is Navigating Polarities. So when we talked about earlier, those emotions of feeling excited and overwhelmed, I'm thinking about a dear friend of mine who's getting ready to welcome, she and her husband are getting ready to welcome her partner, and to welcome a new baby. And they're excited for this new bundle of joy, and they're overwhelmed of what is it going to be like? What do I need? What do I invest in? And so navigating polarities is a wonderful process and approach.
Great. And I'll read out, if you don't
Okay.
mind, Shannon, a question from my old friend, Erwin Valencia. Hi, Erwin. How do we support team members that are a little slower to adapt or less open to adapt to the tech changes that are occurring in an organization still set in old
Mm.
ways? This is certainly challenging. I think empathy does come into play here. When I do workshops on AI related upskilling, AI aided communication, much of the conversation begins with, that varying approaches, right? So on one hand, there's kind of a fear of utilizing and implementing AI, and a lot of people are still there in kind of this fear intimidation space. And then there's, another side that is that's over reliance, and of course our goal is to kind of meet in the middle somewhere, but there can be some dialogue around, you know um, some self-reflection. Where am I on this spectrum of fear, over reliance, versus kind of moving toward leveraging the benefits while mitigating some of the risks in a way that allows me to harness AI to elevate my work. And so I think that really coming to those folks who are a little slower to adopt with curiosity, empathy, and allowing them, creating space for them to kind of reflect on their journey and understand maybe why, and also normalize that it might be scary, to jump into this new terrain when maybe I don't think of myself as a tech savvy person. Um, I hope that helps. Thanks for the question.
I think we have time to respond to one more question at this time. And I wanted to respond to something that Julia shared. I won't read the entire question. You all can see it in the Q&A. But the piece, Julia, that you shared at the end about focusing on educating and how to use various resources, whether it might be AI, whether it might be a new system, a new process, within an organization, maybe how to utilize a new resource within a community. And one strategy that I often try to do is schedule my learning. I read something recently that said, schedule your joy because hardship will come when you least expect it. And so I think scheduling your learning, whether it's about AI, I have started to take 15 minutes a week trying out a new AI software or application, or learning about what is AI, like really what is AI, and trying to turn on my STEM side of my mind. And so I would encourage us all to schedule that, and maybe encourage and set aside time within your teams and organizations to do so.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Shannon. And I'm seeing some really interesting and encouraging sort of messages in the chat. I think we'll move on to kind of wrap up now. We're toward the end of our time. And as you're typing in the chat or reflecting on this session, I would like to invite you to reflect on one key insight or idea from this webinar that really resonated with you, that maybe you'd like to incorporate into your work today, tomorrow, next week, this month. You're welcome to share your thoughts in the chat. And
Yeah. And we look
moving,
forward. Oh, I'm sorry, Hannah. There goes those three words. I'm sorry. And we look forward
sorry.
to staying in touch with you. You can reach out to me and learn more about complexity leadership through my website, gallerydevelopment.org.
And you can learn more about my work in leadership development and communication skills training at hannahnickel.com. Remember, connecting through uncertainty can open up new opportunities and perspectives. So we encourage you to share your insights with others and continue these conversations beyond today's session. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining us.
you. Yes, thank you.